Hi, I'm Alegre Ramos. Happy Thursday, and welcome to my live videocast slash podcast. If you're watching this or listening to this later, then you're listening to the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, which is where you can always find all of these videos. This will be number 121. And today I'm going to talk about chronotypes, what they are, and how knowing yours will help you be more productive. So before I get into it, I always like to start. I'm trying to do a new thing, which is where I'm telling you what I'm going to be speaking about in the future. So next week, I'm going to be talking about the theoretical model of change, which is basically helps you understand why changing what you do or what you think can be so challenging. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I understand these things, I can see the barriers like they're right there in front of me. Like I can see like, oh, I'm doing that thing where my brain is resisting change. And so I need to do this to help overcome that. So that's what we're going to talk about because, as great as all the things that I talk about are here, I understand that sometimes it can be difficult to implement the new tip or tactic that I give you because of the trans theoretical model of change and how it might be pulling you back to what you usually do. And so I really think that this is going to be a great podcast to help you understand why you might need to think about change a little bit differently and, give yourself some grace and understanding like, hey, I'm human, the human brain works this way, and I'm overcoming, millennia of programming. So that will be next week. And then the week after that, I'm going to talk a little bit about productivity and when you engage in a set amount of time, like what's the best amount of time for you to focus on things. I'm going to talk a little bit about something called ultradian rhythms. I'm going to talk about my own experience with when I can focus, how long I can focus on something, when I am in flow versus not in flow. So we'll talk a little bit about flow indirectly. And yeah, I look forward to the next 2 weeks. Those are going to be really fun. Now, if you've joined me before, then you know that I always start with pulling from this box of quotes. Oh, by the way, if you're live, feel free to chat. I will see the chats and I will respond to them. And if you're listening to this later, feel free to, leave a comment. I do see them. Sometimes it's a little bit later, but I'm always happy to engage with you if you have questions. Okay, so let's see what she has for me today. Oh, she's upside down. Take time first thing to visualize an incredible day. Take time first thing to visualize an incredible day. Robin Howard. So if you've heard me before, then you know that I am meditation challenged. It is not something that comes naturally to me. I have invested a lot of time trying to become better at meditating. However, what I find is that, like if I say to you right now, don't think about an elephant, what's the first thing you think about? An elephant, of course. And so for me, when you tell me empty your mind, don't think about anything, I just start thinking about everything. And I've gone to 8-hour long trainings, I've gone to multi-day things, I've tried many different varieties. Currently, I am doing basically exactly what Robin Howard says, which is take time first thing to visualize an incredible day. So I was listening to a book. I don't remember which book I was listening to, where in the book they give you what they call the master mantra or something. I don't remember if that's the exact term, but it's something along the lines of every day I am expanding in love, abundance, and peace, and inspiring others to do the same. Something like that. And the person who was recommending this mantra, they just said, like, this is just a good all-encompassing mantra. So, take a few minutes every day, maybe even doing it multiple times throughout the day, and just spend like 2 minutes saying and thinking this mantra to yourself. And the one time I have found some success with meditating has been when I do it first thing in the morning. Literally, my alarm goes off on my Fitbit, and depending on what position I'm in at that point in bed, I will turn over onto my back. Sometimes I sleep on my back a lot, so sometimes I'm already there. But if I'm not, turn over onto my back. I put my hands open by my side and I close my eyes and I say this mantra to myself in my head over and over again until either I have to get up or I just feel a sense of peace and joy about the day, or just I run out of time, whatever it is. And I have been doing this now pretty regularly for, I don't know, 3 months or so, and I've actually changed the mantra for myself. I've made it a little bit longer because I'm very specific about words, and to me those words didn't encompass exactly what I wanted to say, so I kind of changed them a little bit. But I do today, funny enough, funny that I should pick this card. Funny enough, today I found myself smiling at the end. When I was done saying this mantra, I felt joyful and was smiling. And it's interesting because this weekend, I had a really, really great thing happen to me, which is I produced my second sold out, not just second sold out, but it was my second stand-up comedy show, and it was my second sold out stand-up comedy show. So both shows have sold out, which, like, just thank you. Thank you so much. And it was incredible. If you've ever had the opportunity to do something where it sort of has a end that you can celebrate. So maybe you've, written a book, won a court case, opened a store, started a business, whatever. Because sometimes in life there aren't these definite endings that you can celebrate. So that's why I just mention it. Like when I walked into the sold out room and just the energy was just electric. And I went last, as is my privilege as the producer. And I got to watch, first of all, I got to watch an awesome show. Like, I love comedy. And so watching my friends kill on stage, just being hilarious was amazing. And then getting to go up and just at the end, I said a few words about how I really believe that, laughing with strangers is actually part of what can help heal everything that's going on in our world. Like, my show is really just points out our common humanity. And it was so amazing. I was so high after that show, just so happy and proud and, just talking to everybody and their experience with it. It was so beautiful. And then I had something really, really challenging happen uh the next day. And, you know, the mantra really helped because the negative thing could have overwhelmed the positive thing. But I had established for the last couple months this mantra, and I'm so glad I did because it really, really helped me overcome the challenging thing and not let the great thing get lost in the shuffle of the challenging thing. So, by the way, if you wanna follow my comedy, you can go to chinagona.com. That's CHINAGONA.com, and you can find it there. Anyway, so let's talk about chronotypes. A chronotype is a term that, gosh, you know what? I don't know how long it's been around, but as a student of anthropology, someone who got my degree in anthropology, I don't say anthropologist because I'm not in the field, but I feel like I'm in the field every day because the opportunities to study humans are all around us. But so as I should just say, as an anthropologist, I'm guessing it probably came from anthropologists. And the whole concept is that when we were living in more traditional societies, someone had to be awake at all times of the day to guard the village, to keep the fire stoked, to protect the boundaries. And because of that, we evolved so that there are people who do better during different parts of the day so that someone could always be alert. And the term that developed was chronotypes, the people who do better during different parts of the day. And there are 4 identified chronotypes. And by the way, as with all of these things that are trying to help categorize and generalize, they're not a hard and fast rule. Like, when we die, there's not gonna be a book somewhere that said, "Oh, yep, you were that chronotype, you got it right." It's not like that. These are general observed leanings of people, and you might find like, "Oh, I'm kind of between a this and a that." Yeah, of course, because, that's how these things are, right? You're never exactly 100% as defined because these are definitions that humans have come up with to try and help understand this thing that they're observing. And so anthropologists have probably, or psychologists have probably observed that people tend to do better during different parts of the day, and this is their explanation for it. So they have defined, there have been 4 chronotypes that are defined, and I've seen different names for these chronotypes, but this is what I think I see the most, and this is the one that I'm sticking with. And the chronotypes are the lion, the bear, the wolf, and the dolphin. And I kind of mention them in that order because that's kind of the order of the day that they prefer, the time of day they prefer. So let me just give you a general description of these types. So lions are the early risers. They make up about 15% of the population. They wake up about 5:30 a.m. or maybe even earlier. They are most productive in the first half of the day, and they go to bed at 10 p.m. or earlier. The second chronotype is the bear, and the bear makes up most of the population, 55%. And the bear is the prototypical sort of wakes with the sun and goes to sleep with the sun. So they will wake up, 7 a.m. ish or when the sun rises. Their peak productivity is the middle of the day, and bedtime for them would be 11 p.m. or earlier. Wolves make up also about 15 to 20% of the population. Again, these are all generalizations because they're generalizations in general. And their wake up time is, do I have to? uh, they could sleep in. Their peak productivity would be midday into the evening, and bedtime would be midnight or later. And then finally, we have the dolphins, who are the smallest part of the population, around 10% ish. And maybe you know this about dolphins, but dolphins apparently have 2 parts in their brain, and only one part is asleep at any time, so that the other part is awake. And so their wake up time is irregular. Their peak productivity is late afternoon, and their bedtime is irregular. So you can see how, because of the way the population is split up, there's always someone who is alert at any given time of the day. Now, how does this affect you and how does this affect productivity? Well, I think that, first of all, one thing is that our society, and by our society, I mean Western society, I'm in the US, so I guess I could even say American society, is a little more focused on the morning person. It's kind of set up for a morning person. One of our founding fathers famously said, early to bed and early to rise makes man healthy, wealthy, and wise. But he was kind of only talking about lions and bears there, right? And they didn't know probably about this chronotype. At least maybe they had some guesses at it, but it wasn't something that was spoken about as far as I know. And so our society is kind of biased towards early risers. And this is not always the case. For instance, if you've ever gone to Spain, then you know that the Spaniards' way of life is very biased towards the people who like to stay up late. So it is partially cultural. I'm sure part of it also has to do with environment because I'm guessing in the countries where they have much bigger differences between how much sun there is and isn't based on the seasons, in the northern and southern, the extreme north and extreme south, I'm guessing that they have probably a different distribution and a different cultural bias in terms of how they're set up. But because of where America is set up, kind of like, you know, in between the equator and the North Pole, we have at least a lot of our country doesn't have these huge swings in sunrise and sunset. Like, I remember I spent one summer in Montana, and I couldn't believe the sun was still out at 11. So, I'm sure people would evolve very differently there in terms of their cultural preferences for staying up late if there's still sun up at 11 PM. That was crazy to me. Anyway, so for one thing, you might live in a society that has a cultural bias towards one of these chronotypes that doesn't benefit you. So that's something to think about. And actually, one of the resources that when people ask me, what if I'm a dolphin, but I live in an office environment that is set up for lions? And what I will say is, one, I'm not an expert in this. Two, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV. There is a gentleman, Dr. Bruce, and I believe it's spelled Breuss. He didn't come up with chronotypes, but he did write a book about chronotypes and how you can adjust based on, how you eat, how you sleep, how you can sort of make these adjustments to your chronotype. I guess there is some flexibility there. And by the way, your chronotype can change throughout your life. However, for your sort of like the majority of your adulthood years, apparently it will kind of stay pretty stable. So I would recommend, if you say like, yes, I'm a dolphin living in a lion's world, then definitely check out this book. I believe his website is thesleepdoctor.com. I think it's Michael Bruce. So check that out. And I'll put that in my show notes as well. Okay. So this might be eye-opening for you because you might be living in a culture that isn't really set up for your chronotype. Two, I think a lot of us have this tendency to think about planning their day as, well, I have to do this report. I have time to do this report, you know, after all my meetings. So at the end of the day. Or if you're a parent, I have time to do this work thing after the kids are asleep. Now, if you are working late in the afternoon and you are a dolphin or a wolf, then that's probably great. But as I mentioned, the largest percentage of the population are bears. They're 55%. Lions are 15-ish percent. So together, they make up 70% of the population. So if you're one of those two chronotypes and you're trying to do a report, something that is a mentally intense exercise late at night, guess what? One, it's going to take you way longer to do than if you were working during your peak productivity times. And the other thing too is that the quality might suffer. And I have done this for myself because I write a lot. And when my child was in a certain period of her life, I was trying to write after she'd gone to bed. And I found that one, the quality wasn't as good, but two, to get the same amount of words, it took me 3 times longer to do it at night. So I could write 500 words in 30 minutes in the morning. I don't know if that's the exact number. I don't remember anymore. 500 words in 30 minutes in the morning. It would take me 90 minutes, an hour and a half to write those same 500 words at night. And I felt like they weren't as good. So you can see the productivity implications of chronotypes are huge. If you can turn out a better product in 1/3 the time, you're saving yourself a lot of time, and you're also saving yourself time, not just in that initial work, but in cleaning it up later. Because when I did the work late at night, not only was it taking it 90 minutes, taking me 3 times as long to do it, but then I was having to spend more time to clean it up because it wasn't as good. So this just made me really aware of the fact that I need to reserve my morning for that peak productivity time to do the things that take me the longest. So, there are lots of chronotype summaries out there. Feel free to Google it. And, what I like to do when I'm looking this up for a quick reference, I'll type in chronotype chart and then I'll search for images. And there's lots of great ones out there. But, just something for you to consider is, what tasks do I need to do today? And given if the tasks are mentally intensive, what time of day should I do that in? So, oh, by the way, I'll put the link in the show notes as well. But that same Dr. Michael Boots, he has a good quiz for figuring out your chronotype. So I'll put that in and you can take that and you can find out exactly what your chronotype is. Although you probably already have a strong sense just based on what I described. And so, if you're a lion, you're going to be most productive before noon. If you're a bear, you're going to be most productive in the middle of the day, kind of like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you're a wolf, you're going to be most productive in the afternoon, kind of like 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And if you're, and maybe even, maybe even a little bit later. And if you're a dolphin, you're going to be most productive in the late afternoon, early evening, like 3 to 7 p.m. So based on that, do the stuff that is intensive for you then. And, if you're a manager, think about how your office workers' chronotypes or how your employees' chronotypes, how that could impact their work and how you might get the best out of them if you can give them the flexibility to work within their chronotype. Like, let's say you have someone who is a dolphin. If you really value that person's output, maybe you will let them, have an adjusted schedule. Maybe not the whole week, maybe just a few days of the week when they're really having to work on things that are important so that they can come in later and then work later, or even maybe work from home in the evening. If you're getting better results from your employees by allowing them to work with the rhythms of their brain and their body, it could be worth it. Another thing to think about if you're a manager is, what time of the day are you having your meetings? Because based on the chronotype chart, 70% of your employees are most productive before 2 p.m. So based on that, I feel like it pretty clearly shows that good time for group meetings would be, 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., because then you're getting that biggest block, the 70% block. And then if you have to have another meeting to try and get the wolves and dolphins together, then the best time for that would be kind of like 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., because you might get some of the bears in there too. And so again, you're getting another like 70% chunk. So, maybe you want to think about when you're having your all staff meetings, and, who are the all staff meetings favoring? Are you helping as many of your employees be alert at those meetings so that they're actually taking in the information? When I'm working with clients about productivity and, scheduling meetings and stuff, I always try and make it clear that being effective and efficient are not the same thing. It might be very efficient to just have one all staff meeting, but if 30% of your employees are kind of checked out, maybe it's worth your while to have two all staff meetings and maybe have them be a little bit shorter. I was working with a company who they were having these all staff meetings that were really long. And I actually observed these all staff meetings in person. And not only were they long, but sometimes they were happening outside where it was hard to hear and it was warm. And it was a large, there were a few hundred people at these all staff meetings, maybe even closer to 500, at least 300. And people weren't always paying attention because it was hard to hear, it was hot, it was long. And so that might have been a very efficient way to hold a meeting, but it wasn't as effective. And they were also part of why they were so long was that they were doing the meetings quarterly. And so I suggested, have you thought about doing a meeting on a monthly basis and just making it a lot shorter? And, part of the concern was that there was going to be a loss of productivity in getting people going to and fro, like from the job and off the job, like whereas doing it quarterly felt more efficient. And I said, okay, but are people remembering anything that's said in the meetings? Because if they're not remembering, what's the point of having the meeting? Right? It makes you feel good as one of the people who's speaking because you're getting to say the things that you think need to be said. But if people aren't actually hearing the message, then you might as well not have had the meeting, right? So as a manager, think about how chronotypes might play into the effectiveness of your organization and what you can do to help your employees and their different chronotypes be more effective and also to be more effective as an organization in general. And so take this information and think about how you plan your own day. And are you planning your day around your most productive times? And also, are you honoring your body's needs in terms of waking up and going to sleep? Because I can tell you that as a lion, I am so much peppier. I mean, I know I seem very peppy right now, but I have levels of peppy. And I am way peppier the earlier I go to bed. I actually, for years, it took me forever to not go to bed, 11 p.m., midnight. It took me a long time to learn. And I've talked about this previously, but I am now at the point where I am regularly in bed by 10 and sometimes even 9:30. And let me tell you, I am a crazy happy morning person when I go to bed at 9:30. The difference between me going to bed at 9:30 and me going to bed at 11 is noticeable. So, are you honoring your body's chronotypes just based on what you need in terms of sleeping and waking? And, experimenting with that and see how it changes your outlook because sleep regulates so many of the chemicals in our brain and our body that when you follow the rhythm that is meant for you, you will find that not only are you more productive, but you might actually just feel elevated mood wise. Thank you so much for joining me. As I mentioned, next week I'm going to be talking about uh, the trans theoretical model of change and help you understand why change can be so hard and how understanding this model can help make it easier. And then the week after, I'm going to talk about ultradian rhythms. What's an ideal amount of time to do focused work, like blocks of focused work, my own experience, what the research says, and how you might want to use that to think about being productive in kind of chunks of time. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to find out more about how you can work with me individually, I do offer individualized productivity and time management coaching. I also have a bouquet of books all about productivity and time management and life design. If you want the one that's going to immediately impact your life, get 3-2-1 done. This is all about 3 time management strategies that will help you knock things off your to-do list. And yeah, you can find out that and so much more at my website, bywdreams.com. And remember, planning makes everything easier. Be sure to rate and like and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. Thank you. I appreciate you.